Hello and welcome to another edition of Community Forum. My name is Joseph Feaster. I am the host of the program, but today I have a special opportunity to speak with two exceptional people who are involved with this whole planning for the Stoughton Master Plan and for Stoughton Downtown. This is truly a pleasure for me to have as a guest today another host of Community Forum, Steve Kelley. Steve is a local business owner, an investor, a real estate owner. As you know, he owns Trackside Plaza. He has been great with the town as far as supporting the farmers market, of which he serves as treasurer. He is a member of the Master Planning Committee. He serves on the Public Works Economic Development Committee. And he's been for 6 years, he served as the former chair of the Downtown Revitalization Committee. With him as well is Sarah Farragon. She's a mural artist and a community activist. She in fact, we'll be showing a model later on in the program, which she designed and will be speaking with us about. She has murals in several different places, one notably near a community which I hold near and dear in Boston at Franklin Park Zoo. And she has a business at Trackside Plaza and known as SKF Design. So I want to say welcome, Steve. Welcome, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining me here today. We're going to be talking about not the master plan. We're going to be talking about the master plan designed by Steve Kelley, his thoughts about what the downtown should look like. And Steve, I just first want to applaud you as a friend. We've gotten to know each other. You're a distinguished businessman, a committed individual to this town in so many ways, both in terms of your businesses, your acumen, your value to us is so important. And I'm really happy to see you're thinking outside the box in this regard. So why don't we start with you telling us what made you say, I want to think about what should happen in downtown?
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for the great introduction. I don't know if I deserve all of that, but I think like many residents in town and businesses in town, it's very frustrating to experience what appears to be a center that doesn't seem to have a direction in it. And we've lost so many stores, whether it's, we've lost a pharmacy. I mean, I don't think any place has lost a Dunkin' Donuts and a Honeydew. So we've got 2 coffee shops that went out of business. We've had an optometrist that went out of business, 2 hardware stores that went out of business. I mean, the list is just as long as you could ever want it to be. And it really has piqued my curiosity that perhaps there's something structurally wrong. I knew Eddie McGrath. I knew Manny Pacheco. I've known many of these people, and they're great people, and they work hard and have good ethics. And why would their businesses all fail? And I don't think it's different than the rest of, say, the United States along these lines. That I think there's something, in fact, I believe I know there's something deeper structurally that is causing the problem for Stoughton Center. And it reminds me or lends itself to the idea of how what I call blind pragmatism, and it's where everybody seems to be buying things in a way that they think is very pragmatic. So they're going to go to online stores, they're going to go to superstores, they're going to go to malls, and by doing that, they're abandoning the centers, and a center like Stoughton. So the idea that it piqued my curiosity that how could good businesses be going out of business, and is it perhaps a combination? Is it more complex than people realize? Is it a combination of perhaps poor land use choices? And then is it also something that is deeper than that, that relates to the overall public awareness of what it takes to build a community?
Well, you mentioned about folks abandoning downtowns, and this is not a conversation that's unique to Stoughton. I mean, we're in Boston, they have the same thing in terms of the downtown area, and what's happening is they've changed some of the uses. For instance, Suffolk University has designed dormitories and other places in there. They're still looking to try to replace the Filene's building that was there. But I've also seen it in other town centers. I mean, you go over, interesting, I'm just going to jump a state. I was in Manchester, New Hampshire a couple of months ago, and I was amazed with what their core downtown now looks like. There are many communities here. If you go over to, you know, even into Canton, you know, you go into Easton. So the question becomes, as you begin to look at this and you talk about structural pieces, do you think, what is the role that both citizens and government in your mind and in the private sector could play in some of the thoughts that you had about doing this? And then I'm gonna go to Sarah, who I know designed it, and maybe we can talk a little bit more about that. But what, in your thinking, because something made you think that I wanted to put together a plan, which I asked Sarah to design. What was some of your thinking about those components?
Well, first of all, these are great questions.
Yeah.
Because you're leading me to sort of retell how I think I figured some of what's wrong.
Okay.
I think that in any community, there are three basic silos. It's sort of a different view that you could have. And those silos are residents, businesses, and then town employees. So it doesn't matter if it's a city or a town, but those three silos of people interact. And I think that people are not aware that it's really about relationships, that we have, that you could move into a town, and it doesn't matter which town you're in, you may not realize that as a resident, you have a relationship with the businesses in that town. You have a relationship with the town employees, and vice versa. And if those relationships are not honored, maintained, and acknowledged, what you have is you have problems start to come up. So, for instance, if everyone were to buy 80%, which I think is probably very likely, 80 or 90% of the things that they buy in a mall or online, what they're doing is they're not sort of acknowledging that businesses are important to a community. And they're not doing it intentionally. It's not like, you know, they're saying, hey, I only got, you know, I got $375 in my paycheck this week. I got to stretch it. I got to feed my kids. I got to feed my car. But there's something different about buying gas at a BJ's versus buying gas at a local place. And if you think back in history, even if you just go a short time, 100 years back, you know, your uncle might have been the person who took care of the horses, and someone else might have been a mechanic. And the way communities grew is because we didn't have the reach that we have now with the internet and transportation choices, if you wanted to build an addition on your house, you'd get lumber right next door. They couldn't get very far. So that lumber person would make some money. They, in turn, would stimulate the economy. And as that network of contacts grew, you end up with a community that then becomes a town. We've forgotten that as a collective. There's no finger pointing to any individual, but as a collective, we've forgotten how to make community. And community is what made America great. So I think that knowing that if you could envision, if you agree with me, that there are these silos, what I tried to envision in coming up with an idea that could spark the revitalization of Stoughton Center was, how do we make these three silos interact better together?
And that's a great segue to Sarah, because what you did was to take your creative juices and let's put them into a hard design so we can begin to examine how some of that might fit together. And so you've done that, and you've gotten Sarah, who is a mural artist, to put together a model of what you were thinking about. Now, we'll explore a little bit more on how those different silos interact. We'll get more into that because that gets into my political world, and I love that. Okay. But Sarah, let's talk a little bit about, first I want our viewing audience to know a little bit more about you, because we all know about Steve Kelley. He's just an icon in the community. And so therefore, especially I don't need many more about him. Okay. First, tell folks more about you, what you do, how you do it, how long you've been doing it, and then let's talk about this particular project.
My background is very peculiar in that my student days, a majority of my friends wound up at the Center for Advanced Visual Studies, which was about creating community art. One of the things that came out of that time period was First Night. And so that's somewhat my background, is First Night.
First Night in Boston?
First Night in Boston.
Oh, okay, very good.
So I was in the very first Night.
With Mayor Benito?
Yes. And what I saw, those events, Cambridge River Festival, so there's a whole background of parades and environmental art, and I saw how it economically was benefiting places. I mean, when you think of what First Night has brought to Boston in regards to an economy, so I feel like that you can design a good economy. That good design reflects in the well-being of a community and the well-being of businesses, government, and the citizens. And
So taking that concept and taking what Steve has done, you develop a model, and why don't you walk us through what you envisioned and what you designed as relation to what you and Steve talked about?
Well, let's see. Shall we start with the idea of the tubes, which I think is the most radical idea?
Don't look to Steve. You're going to run how you. It's your show now. I'm turning it over to
All
you.
right.
We're going to sit back.
Well, probably the most futuristic is, and this is, I have to give credit to Steve, is to winterize the center of Stoughton. So we tried to
Why don't you use your pointer? It'd just be helpful, so that you can tell them what you're referring to.
These tubes create a half-mile track all the way around the park area. And what you can do, or the way it's been designed, is you can, say, start at a visitor center, which would be here.
Okay, I just want to could you give folks an orientation just by way of street, just so that they can get a feel, because I don't think they will be able to see the street orientation. So would you just tell us in relationship to what street that's near, or as you described?
This is Porter Street,
Okay.
right here, and it's where the old Dunkin' Donuts used to be.
Okay.
And this, again, we turn here, and this is 138 and 27, and the split here. 139 is like right up here, and this is the parking lot for Trackside Plaza, the back of this, right here.
And Wyman Street is?
Well, Wyman Street has been replaced with a park.
Okay, all right. Just want to let folks know. Hey, I'm going to put. We're going to be transparent here, so I want to make sure. All right. So why don't you go ahead with your description?
So we've got these walking tubes that can move from feature to feature. One of the features I think is one of the most important is to ask for a transportation center. The transportation center, which the walking tubes will go in and out of, and the trains will go in and out of. But you'll also have 4 floors of various activities. Like the first floor, we make into like a Faneuil Hall type marketplace right here. So you could get off the train or even get off the bus, because it would include a bus station. And that, you could create a commercial center there. Let's see, the next floor, I think we were going to do food courts and like shops, magazine shops, things like that. The third floor would possibly be a satellite university, which I think could create additional business interests, especially if it was something like RISD or Emerson, something like that. And then the top floor would be like very fancy restaurants, like 3 big restaurants, which would draw people into the town. Let's see, so the next place is you could walk through here. Oh, the restaurant, yes. This is an artist whose rendition, Joe Norris.
Can we focus on camera 3 on this, please? Thank you.
And
Go ahead.
This would be the view from the top floor of the transportation center. So you'd be looking down at the old train station, And you could also see the organic garden, which would be closed in, and our formal garden with sculptures and plants. And then this is a hatch shell here on the corner, so that you could see lots of activities going on in the town while you have dinner.
Was South Station some of the help in terms of the thinking about your vision here? Because as I come into South Station, I think some of these concepts exist at South Station. Was that some of the thinking? Because I know the bus terminal and the train terminal going in and out, that's South Station. Or is there any other place that had influenced your thinking as you designed this?
Yeah, South Station was definitely in the back of my mind, but it's the pulling in of people who come in from other places, who come in from the outskirts, and they park, and they can come in, and you create an activity for them before either when they get off the train or before they get on the train.
I don't think that you pointed it out, but is that your parking structure there?
This is our parking structure.
Okay.
Right
and,
here.
okay, your parking structure would have how many levels?
It
we
would
proposing?
be 5 levels, so it would be 4 floors and roof parking. And we would open up Railroad Ave here so that when the trains come in, that you can let the parking out of this parking, and we would change the configuration here so that they could go straight to 27. So you come out Railroad Ave and there'd be a light, so you could come up and make a right or get 139 or get on to 138. And immediately, because you're draining this parking lot, you're reducing the buildup of traffic that would be happening here, which if there was a lot at the police department, that would be the outcome.
Okay, all right. Now, I don't know if it's you or Steve, the concept of the park, was that your vision, your dream? Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Sarah.
Actually, it was.
Okay, talk about it. Let's examine that great mind of yours and see what made you think about using this land, because that's a land use question.
Okay.
And people are going to say, well, is that the highest and best use? How do we afford that? Those are the types of questions that come when you want to get, in effect, this is largely passive, in some respect, passive space. And so the question is that the best use for it? What's your thoughts?
Well, if I could just share that I had an unusual way of envisioning it. I had actually hired Sarah to make some artwork for a floor that turned out to be so beautiful that we put it on a wall. All right, so it's supposed to be a floor piece, and it was a mandala. I don't know if anyone knows what a mandala is, but it's a type of art, and Sarah could answer it better, but I'll give you my, I like to call it a dumb impression of it. It's the 4 quadrants of the artwork mirror each other.
Okay.
And the reason I mentioned that is that I was looking at that, and it's just this beautiful piece of artwork, and I wish we had a picture now to show you. But it started to make me think that if we could do things in quadrants, that we could build a park that had quadrants. And anchoring the quadrants was sort of the start as I started to write up the plan first. And I had the idea that the cinema, which has a group right now, the State Theater, they're trying to revive the State Theater, and that would be the anchoring point in one of the quadrants. And then on the next quadrant would be the transportation center and the train station. The existing train station, which is a museum quality building, it's protected by the government. It's just a wonderful building. I actually had a vision that we could make that into a museum, and an art museum at that. And one of the things we want to do is bring arts into Stoughton. We are an arts community. We have a number of artists that are displaying work in places in Boston. We have people right here at Trackside Plaza. We have a number of art studios. I think Elaine Ostrander has a group of artists there. And the high schools and the junior high schools, recently we had that Chengdu fire, and when that sort of became almost what you'd call blighted for a period of time, I came up with the idea that if we could get some art, that it would change the way people look at the center.
So
And
that
I-
worked, so that those artist boards that are up at the site where the Chengdu fire was, you were instrumental in having that done?
Yeah, I reached out to
Thank you.
artists, they embraced the idea, and also the schools did. So in fact, today, we're putting up 2 more that were done by the O'Donnell School. And the students of the schools are actually making some of these art boards. And we're putting them up for display and showing, I think, that, you know, Stoughton can have culture. And I think that that's something where the Train Museum would be a great thing. So that's 2 of the quadrants. The 3rd quadrant is up on the far corner across from Town Hall. And I think it was Sarah's idea that we put in a hat shell up there and create a venue for music and other things. And I will tie that in a little bit later about how we deal with the silos. And then in the 4th corner, I wanted to tie in the idea of having a visitor center with a gift shop. And actually, we want to put an ice cream parlor that is run by high school students. And I can talk a little bit about how I want to connect all of these silos into something that really builds community. And so as I thought about the way you could do that, I realized that, and I also have the advantage of looking out from my office at the space that we're calling a park now. And you see that the post office has 20 or 30 trucks, and you see wires in the backs of buildings, and you see parking for the T, and frankly, it's not anything pretty at all. There's nothing inspiring about it. And I just felt that if you were to helicopter down, and you actually can kind of see that in the model, you will see that Stoughton is at the center of about 11 roads. So all roads lead to Stoughton Center. And that's a perfect spot. Contrary to what people think that Stoughton Center is a problem because it has roads, in fact, we capitalize on it. And that's where all roads lead to the center, and you make this beautiful park. Then I had the idea that we would summarize it. I think the only problem Stoughton has is that it's in New England. There are no other problems. They're all solvable, in my opinion. And
Let me just append to that, because it's something I observed as well when I served as interim town manager, and in fact did a presentation at that town meeting. I think it was 2012. And what basically what I said, not only is it all the roads that lead to Stoughton, Stoughton is the epicenter of most of the communities here.
Yes.
So if you look at it, and then I went historical and went back to 1620, and most of the other towns around here were created out of what was called Stoneham.
Yeah.
So you know, so if you check the history and even the geography, you have Stoughton at the center, you have Sharon, you have Easton, you have Brockton, you have Avon, Randolph, and Avon. And then you have all the roads, 139, 138, 27, quickly to get to 95. So you say it has all the things, and particularly as a developer, you know, we say location, location, location.
Yes.
So you definitely have picked up on that in a multiplicity of ways. But you're on the master planning committee, and I know I've attended some of the meetings, and this isn't it. This isn't what they're talking about.
Yep.
So how do you?
Well, let me be clear, first of all.
Yeah.
I am not speaking for the master plan committee. I have to be very
That's right.
clear about that. I am a member, but I'm not speaking for them. This was just after I became a member. I have a level of frustration that we talk around what we want, but there wasn't a plan. And so I just made up my mind, I'm going to come up with a plan that would, let's say, inspire other people's ideas. By no means is this a perfect plan. In fact, there's some harm that would come to people that I'm very concerned about. That harm being, if this plan were adopted, it requires eminent domain takings. And some people, it would be a reward. They'd be happy to be on their way. You know, there are some buildings that have substantial deferred maintenance that no matter how much you invest in them, you'll never get that money out of them.
But see, the thing, I don't even want you to focus on that, because what the real thinking here is, and I invite any person in the community, if they have a thought or an idea, that's one of the reasons why I was gratified that the master planning process took effect, simply because it allowed people to come out, hear, think, and express their viewpoint. So your expression of it, whether you're on the committee or not, is fine. So you don't even have to defend your desire to think outside the box. I think that, yes, a plan that's adopted is going to have impact impacts that are going to have to be discussed. And that's where, again, I'm going to go to one of those other quadrants. Government's role. Government is going to have a significant role in this from the standpoint of the zoning, some of the financing. What's your thinking there? And then Sarah, because I'm going to be coming back to you on some things as well, but how can government, or what role has government played? Can it play? There's been criticism, oh, we've done planning all these times and they sit up on the shelf. What's your thoughts? You're on the committee. What's your sense? And I know you've been at the meeting, Steve, so.
What got us into this sort of situation as a town with a center that's very downtrodden is not going to be the same thing that gets us out of this. So, in other words, we have to think differently from what has happened in the past. What I'm suggesting is that an entrepreneur alone, a government alone, neither of those two are going to be able to fix this problem. I think we need a public-private partnership, and that's what I'm proposing for a park. For an example, you have a retail transportation center, and in that center, you're going to have leases that are needed. You're going to have to build it, but then you're going to have leases. I envision 3 high-end restaurants on the 4th floor overlooking this beautiful park. I envision a number of lease spaces for the food court, clothing shops, perhaps a Dunkin' Donuts or a Honeydew Donuts, or I know we have a wonderful baker, Ann from Pacheco there, and Ann Azul, the Stoughton Bakery, and she would be somebody invited in. In fact, anyone affected by this, it's my belief that you should take special care, and you might be able to say, well, if after we build the building, you'll get a 20% discount if you were dislodged. You know, so there are things that we could do to help the people that would be.
And that's where government can come in as well. We can do tips. We can do a number of different financial incentives that could be of assistance if folks, and particularly when you do eminent domain, there's that mitigation is all part of the conversation in any event if someone's land is taken. So there are probably a number of things that we can do. But I want to come, Sarah, you've been, again, Steve came to you, not only you have a business right here in Stoughton, you are an artist, Steve came to you. Independently, any thoughts that you had as to, have you attended any of the master planning pieces, but at least if nothing else, where you're located, you've seen things going on, the farmer's market, you see the parking that's out there just for the train station, you see what's being discussed as far as the South Coast Rail. Any thoughts that you had, forgetting this plan, which you're really speaking about now, any other thoughts as to how Stoughton might proceed based upon your background?
Well, what I was thinking is Stoughton has to recognize its opportunity. And the opportunity is that, in a way, this is the best time to enact a plan like this, because you're not enacting a plan that's just simply about the next 5 years. You're enacting almost like a different kind of civic pride that will last for a very long time. So my sense is it's not just building a park, but it's creating a place where there's a constant flow of different kinds of community. And to me, this is the answer to online buying, because it's a very isolating experience. And I think in the long run, people don't like being isolated, that they just want it to be somewhat organic, that the connections you make in a park become part of the cohesion of the town.
You strike me as a very creative thinker and a creative person. And if I said to you, I'm sitting as governor, I say, okay, Sarah, I hear that. What are some of the interim steps that we might be able to do as a town? What are some of the things that we can do? Now, you said you were involved in First Night. I know the influence of First Night. I think First Night is about 20 years old.
Yeah,
I think that's it. And I know it's shifting hands, and we have a new mayor in Boston and all of that. But nonetheless, the concept of the enjoyment that families have had during the New Year's season for all of these years was because of that, and the economic benefit to those businesses in that in downtown Boston has been, and along Boylston Street, has been extraordinary. Any thoughts as to how, we might be able to, if you thought that that was something worthwhile, that could be replicated here in Stoughton, or any other ideas?
Well, one of the ideas is simply one of the foundations of First Night is walking. And walking is a huge challenge in Stoughton. So I think that if we, at least as a fundamental, head towards trying to make Stoughton more of a walking community, that's a big step in the right direction. The second thing is that in order for you need a place for it to happen. You need a venue. And right now there's no venue for community activities. I mean, the venues for community activities are away from the center, which I think is a disadvantage. So the idea would be to bring those back into the center.
See, those are all great thoughts. Steve, I know that you have there's just so many things we have here, most of which we won't be able to get to, but I know there are, you've taken it beyond the design concept and got into other aspects of what a community can and should be. For instance, the Pioneering Healthy Committee that you're involved with, or we talked about this second Pledge of Allegiance, which I'm just willing, I want to hear about that at the appropriate point in time, but some of your other concepts extend beyond just the hardcore design. It's a question of other aspects that the community should have, such as what Sarah was pointing to here. Make it walkable. Walkability makes it livable. It provides other types of things. So sometimes we can put the fixes on that may not be that costly, that we can tinker it as we move along, and maybe we ought to lay some of those out, even in advance of the master planning here.
Okay.
But talk about your Pioneering Healthy Committee.
Well, first of all, the Y in town is fabulous. Ellen Green is the executive director, and she encouraged a number of people, including the Chamber of Commerce, to get involved with pioneering healthy communities. And that engaged a group of people, Teresa Tappa and Pam Carr, and a whole bunch of other people. I feel bad that I'm not remembering everybody's name, but they're now running a farmer's market, and that creates community. And we actually have a place here in the park design for the farmer's market. But I want to hit upon this Pledge of Allegiance. I want all the towns and cities to have a new Pledge of Allegiance. I don't mean to detract from the original one, but a secondary one, and that is to do business 51% in town. If every town does 51% of their business in town, imagine like Stoughton, every resident says, I'm going to do business 51% in town. That doesn't mean you can't do business with Brockton. They can do 51% in Brockton. Do you follow? The idea being that you are going to start to build this community that we had 100 years ago, where the local cobbler and the local lumberyards, and notice the lumberyards have disappeared because this happened. We start to buy in town, and then a new business wants to come in town, and then we could say we have a pledge from 80% of our residents that they're going to buy 51% in town. Gee, maybe I will open a shoe store in town. I know that the people are going to come to me. So this idea that you could have something that re-engages the residents, and we're talking about the silos again, the residents with the businesses. There's this sort of acknowledgement or the lack of acknowledgement, lack of awareness. And if you were to ask me what's the biggest obstacle to building a park, I think it's the need for a new awareness of what it's going to take to be successful in the new millennium. And that awareness is about how do you build community. We've forgotten. It's sort of like lost in a time capsule somewhere. If we can reinvigorate that and do things like a secondary Pledge of Allegiance, everyone will do business, 51% in their town. You can still go other towns, you can still go online, but most of your business, 51% most, will be in town. You will start to create an enterprise, and you'll have a new economic engine in town.
Well, let me say, I'm going to take not an opposing view, but I want to at least be a little pointed in terms of some of my inquiry here. And that is, okay, we say that. What is the incentive for a business to locate here presently? Now, you started to tick off the number of businesses that have left the town.
Yep.
Honeydew, Dunkin' Donuts, Shores Market, the medical building, well, you can say out of the center of town, Chengdu, even though they've moved over to a new location. And again, from a real estate standpoint, which you and I both are, we're saying we have Class C businesses. We aren't stating what we want, we don't know what the community needs or desires. So all of that is part of the conversation. If you're going to get someone to make the pledge, you also got to have what they need,
Right.
or they're getting in their car and going someplace else.
Well, exactly, and I don't know if Leo, I don't know if our cameraman could just pull up this wonderful picture here.
Or you can come over okay, yeah.
So if you look, these are the tubes we talked about, and you'll see a lady with a stroller and some kids walking, and these are elevated above a park. I mean, it's something that you don't see anywhere. There's a set of these in Paris. They're walking tubes. So what we're going to do is summarize the winters. So you can come to Stoughton Center. They're a half-mile loop, 2 loops. Obviously, you'll get a mile. You'll visit the various quadrants. You'll see people down below. You'll have an ice skating park. There's a fountain there, a beautiful fountain, it's a Japanese garden. All of these things will give the community a place to be, and there will be a radiating effect on all of the roads around this kind of a park. In fact, the saying, a rising tide lifts all boats. And in fact, that will happen. So that's the kind of an environment that will encourage a business to come in. And if you don't do that, I mean, we haven't touched upon the cost yet. Someone says, well, what is the cost of all this? And I would pose the opposite question. The cost of not doing it is continual decline. I mean, you have a nice business right in town, a couple of doors down from Town Hall. It's a new sort of a venue about like a beer.
House of Brews.
House of Brews, but it's meant to be like a cultural place, a collective, if you would. But if you don't do more than that, they're going to ride a short wave and travel the same trail that our 2 wonderful hardware stores traveled. They need more to be sustainable. We need more people. We need more of a destination. You know, something that Stoughton can be known for. And what I think is wonderful is that whether it's Easton, Brockton, whatever, they're not the center. The way Stoughton is, they can't do what we can do in Stoughton Center.
One of the things, and again, after we fall back to your developer standpoint and the things I'm aware of, when any business is looking at, to locate, and particularly some of your major chains or major stores, what they're looking for is they want to know the foot traffic that's going to be. Right now, I would say folks come in, get in there, take the train, and they're out again.
Yep.
So the businesses here, there's no money that turns over in Stoughton because they're not viewed as a destination, it's viewed as a pass-through. Yes. How do you think we're going to be able to capture that? And that gets back to your point as well, Sarah. That gets back to your point of building a community. There's certain things in this year that you must have. And so it goes along with making it attractive, but it's also making it user-friendly is some of the things you're talking about. Is there other things that we might think about in the interim that we might be able to do, Sarah?
Well, I don't know about the interim, but I keep thinking that if you have the ideal is to have a constant flow of activities so that you have, and here we'll go back to the model just to show you what some of these activities can be. And these, I hope, will not only create a constant flow of customers for local businesses, but it creates a constant interest so that in people's minds from other towns, they go, well, what are you doing on Sunday? I don't know, let's go to Stoughton. So I think that could translate to real business for people. So if we went, say, to here, which would be an ice skating rink right there, and it would be very much, and then in the summer you could do it as a frog pond so that you have family events there. This area here would be an organic garden so that you would have people who would come down and see various shows in the winter based on horticulture of some sort. This is the theater. Well, we could run an outdoor theater in the back. That would be a constant flow of activities that would constantly draw people into the very center of Stoughton. And I think that translates to a real economy. that constant flow.
You know, and I think that gets back to Steve, what you were saying, and I believe you said it as well, Sarah. You know, to do nothing is really going backwards. You know, to standing still is really not an option.
No, it's not.
And while we're not going to dwell upon how this will be paid for, because this is creative at this point in time. This is thinking outside the box. But I can just say, from the development work that I've done, we've talked about some things which provide income in here for this. The transportation center that's designed and proposed here, with all of the elements in it, in the sense of the businesses and the restaurants and all of those, that provides income.
Yes, it
So
does.
how do you know, and when you're looking at trying to structure the building of the buildings, that's something. There's a role for the transportation modules to be able to pay for the use of our space and other things here. There's a conversation to be had with the state about that can be done. The parking garage is something which it can be either privately owned or can be municipally owned in order to derive revenue, and then all the other uses that you've talked about there. But I think the basic premise here is that we need to think about something, because what we have now is just not sustainable.
Absolutely.
And we'll be gone as a town
Yeah.
if we don't do something.
And if I could just, the idea of public-private partnerships, a private person could build that garage and at a substantially less cost than a town could. So that you can have some sort of an arrangement where you have like park management, where you, the park management hires a management agency and is able to build that, or build the transportation building for a lot less money.
Yes.
Okay, than a town can do it, because it's much harder with the regulations that sort of hold back a town. I also want to touch on some other things about building community. One of the things that the high school really appreciates and needs is intern opportunities. And built into the design of this park is a situation where you can have the high school help design the park. You can have the high school run an ice cream shop. And another thing that I wanted to recommend is that in the Hatch Shell building, that we give away free space to all of the local chambers of commerce. Right? In exchange for, you have to intern people, you have to mentor people. That's the bargain. You'll get the second floor over this beautiful park, second floor offices for free, but you must engage the community. So now people will have a place to go where they can get training, a place to go for mentoring. And that will build community. So people will be coming. If you do have the high school interns come in and run an ice cream shop, who's going to attend that? You know their friends are coming, their mothers and fathers are coming, their cousins and uncles are coming. That business is going to thrive.
Plus, we're building capacity.
And you're building capacity, everything. I mean, this opens the door for a new way to construct a town around a park that creates community with public and private partnerships, where you help the businesses and the residents succeed. The employees of the town empower the business and residences. They, of course, benefit, because the more well-run the town is, the more access they have to the funding they need for their jobs.
Well, as you know, we got to say thank you to our sponsors. So I'm going to
Yes.
break for a moment,
Okay.
but we're going to be right back after I give some respect to our sponsors.
Very good.
SKF Designs. This is Sarah Farragon's company. Definitely, you see the great work that Sarah has done on this model. Stop by her studio at Trackside Plaza, Suite F211 in Stoughton, or you can email her at sarahfarragon@designsbyskf.com, or give her a call at 781-603-7098. NAMI Walks, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, is having a walk on Saturday, May 10th, 2014 at Otsasamo Park, 1255 Soldiers Field Road in Brighton. NAMI is having this walk to raise awareness about mental illness and to stop the stigma. You can find out more information by going to their website at www.namiwalks.org/Massachusetts, or contact Karen Gromas at 617-580-8541. The crew would like to thank
Maxie's.
Maxie's Delicatessen at 117 Sharon Street, Stoughton. You can reach them to place your orders at 781-341-1662. The American Cancer Society is looking for volunteers to drive cancer patients to and from treatment. So if you have a vehicle and have some time in order to assist our persons with cancer, I would ask that you call 1-800-ACS-6662 or view their website at www.cancer.org. Ilsa Mark's Food Pantry in St. Anthony's Free Market is located at the First United Methodist Church. And if you'd like more information about the pantry, call Christine Gallagher at 781-341-0611 or 781-341-0549. Meals on Wheels can also use your assistance in providing or delivering meals to some of our homebound persons. And so therefore, you can find out more information by calling 781-344-8882, extension 2, and ask for Jessica. Stoughton Penny Savers. Their motto, our business is advertising your business. They can be reached at 27 Rose Glen Street in Stoughton, and to place your ads, call 781-344-4833. International Forum Show, where we, by Skype, would like to and have spoken to persons from all across the world and many persons who have roots to those of us here in Stoughton. So we interview guests. They have local roots, and wherever they might be in the world, we're ready to have a conversation with them, and we welcome your thoughts and ideas as to whom we should speak with, and certainly would like to engage those citizens of Stoughton who may be traveling abroad and would like to have a conversation with us about their adventures abroad. The program airs on Sundays at 8:30 p.m., Mondays at 11 p.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., Thursdays at 9:30 p.m., Saturdays at 12 noon on Comcast Channel 9 or Verizon Channel 28. My, and I'm sure Steve's, favorite program, Community Forum, and our show times in Stoughton are Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays at 6 p.m., Mondays at 8 p.m., Tuesdays at 5 p.m., and you can view us on Comcast Channel 9, Verizon Channel 28. We certainly welcome your comments and suggestions, and you can do that by emailing us at communityforum1@yahoo.com. Community Forum is also shown in Easton on Mondays at 9 p.m., Tuesdays at 8 a.m., Wednesdays at 3 p.m., Saturdays at 10 a.m. on Comcast Channel 9 and Verizon Channel 22. Again, your comments and suggestions are welcomed, and you can communicate with us by emailing us at communityforum1@yahoo.com. Well, we're back. This has been a most illuminating discussion for me. I certainly appreciate Steve and Sarah for all that you have brought, and we're not through yet. But again, I appreciate anyone, because that's stepping out there. That's putting your chin out there, Steve. And I'd like to get a sense from you. I heard somebody told me that at some meeting you got a standing ovation. But tell me, what has been the reception?
I think we had sort of a couple of different receptions, and that allows me to talk about one thing. I've had a number of people that think this is the best thing since sliced bread. It really is a great idea that they really need to make Stoughton Center something much better than it was. I have had a couple of discussions with people who are incensed that the idea of taking someone's land, and you have to feel for a person who says, hey, my family grew up here, you can't ask me to leave my place. There's no amount of money that you can give me. So you're facing some of that, and you have to, if something like this, or a plan, any variation of a plan like this came to pass, I think you need to take special attention for those people. You really have to take care of them.
Well, I think, again, and it's interesting, as a real estate lawyer and one who deals with land development, Yeah, certainly you're going to have that, and that's what eminent domain is all about. If you can find we're talking about a public purpose versus a private purpose, and the sensitivity is built in, and I'm sure that there will be some folks, and at least I studied while I was in law school, those places where there's one little house in the middle of a shopping center.
Yeah. It doesn't do them. It doesn't do them any good.
Yeah. So
It
what
really
I'm
doesn't.
saying is, and in fact, I think very close by, I wasn't involved with the planning, but as you come down 27, is that one house is at the Rotary. I suspect that that was the person that says, I'm not going anywhere.
And you may never be selling it either.
That's right.
Ever.
Yeah, so my only sense is, I hear what you're saying about the sensitivity. I guess the impression for me would be, and I personally applaud you for thinking outside the box. Have the courage to come up with an idea. I mean, that takes a lot, and investing both your time and your money, and Sarah, in terms of the great model that you have put together here as a concept, it's worthy of more discussion. And and I say to folks, and as I said on a program we had when we had the candidates here, see, there are some people who are cowards. They will criticize it and do it by email and other ways. And if you have an opinion, come and give it.
Let's have another show and let's hear
are not even a show. You're approachable. They know where to find you. Come and say, Steve, I think that's a piece of garbage.
Yeah. I'd like to, if I can
let's
show
have
you a
that
few.
Conversation.
I'd like to show you a few more features.
Yeah.
If
Why
I
don't
could.
you do that? I don't know if your microphone is
I think
going
I have
to.
enough mic to do it.
You
Okay.
sure?
Yeah, let me just move back.
All right,
Yeah.
there you go.
And I want to show you some of the design features, Joe.
Okay.
First off, we have a wonderful Portuguese community. They've
Yes.
just built the Portuguese club. It's up to code. It's perfect. That's not affected in this plan.
Right.
So I think that's very important. A couple of other design features that Stoughton has been plagued with is, among them is parking, all right? And what we did as a design feature is we wanted to have drive-up parking on two sides of the park. But what happens with drive-up parking is your car, it's difficult to back out after you pull in. So what we arranged was a 12-foot backup strip with a rumble strip on the outside edge. And that rumble strip means that a car passing along cannot travel in this 12-foot space. So a car can pull in, enjoy the park, come back into their safe 12-foot zone, and then get right into traffic. So that's sort of a design feature that's really needed. A second piece is,
Why don't you orient folks again on what street you're talking about? 'Cause I
we're
know
talking
this
about the
is
main
important.
area right
Okay.
out, right
That's
here.
138.
138 across from the old Pacheco's Hardware. I think
Okay.
where Pashley's real estate is right now.
Right.
And also the Congregational Church is here.
Yes.
Where the Farmers Market is going to be this year, by the way. But we want to put a 40-foot wide, 4-inch elevated crosswalk. And essentially, we want to say to people, if there's a pedestrian on that area and your car's on it, you're getting a ticket. So let the pedestrians cross. So you'll bump up over that, and you'll know it every time you come into the center. So we're trying to make the whole center more pedestrian-friendly, more user-friendly. We've got beautiful bike paths and walkways, all designed throughout. Also a place for the farmers market eventually. In addition to that, we're talking about the train all the time and the traffic. And some people have said we should submerge the train, and other people, I believe we could raise the train. I'd love to see the train elevated. Either submerging it or elevating it, you're going to reduce the traffic because now you're not going to be stopped in two places where we are now. Typically what happens, this is all cars in here parked, so when the train comes, they flood and they cause all kinds of traffic. And they're also stopping the traffic to let the train come in. So this is one way that you can avoid all of that. So we've tried to do some design features that make it easier for the vehicles to get around. And one other thing that's sort of a personal peeve of mine, out on the front street here, you'll often see buses stopped.
Can we bring the camera just up a little bit so we can see that
Okay.
front street there?
Okay, so-
just a little bit more, Leo. That's good. Thank you.
Usually you'll see people, and I feel bad, there are plenty of people that don't have enough money to have a car, and they're out shivering in the cold, and I just think it's not taking care of your community enough. So that was part of the reason we want to put a transportation center in. Imagine these people, instead of freezing in the cold, they come into the transportation center, they grab a cup of coffee while they're waiting for the bus, and that would require us to be able to bring buses around the back. In fact, Trackside Plaza would lose a stretch of land that would accommodate buses so that the buses can slide along in here. So we've tried to do things that help traffic flow, help parking, help pedestrian safety, and give a community a beautiful place to come and visit and grow. So those are just some of the design features that.
Just one other one, which I know is not one which you may have vetted during this process here, and that would be the street and intersections, such as, you know, as we now have 138 coming in, 27.
Yep.
I know Sarah, when she gave her presentation, talked about extension of Railroad Avenue and all of that. Is there any change in the orientation in your plan for that 27, 138 intersection? Is there a change there as well?
Okay. Actually, I'm welcome to, but this isn't the plan.
That's
This
right.
is not a perfect plan.
No, but just
I
in
want
your
to
thinking.
open the
Yeah.
door to all of the smart people in the world who could say, wait a minute, you know, we now have an opportunity and a reason to develop something better. What can we do to create better flow of traffic? I certainly know that by having on-site parking that's easily accessible and safe, you're going to get people that want to come up on a Sunday morning. They're going to come in, take their family, walk through the park. It can be a beautiful place, a 5-acre park built as a destination and designed around the idea of residents, businesses, and town employees taking care of each other.
Well, you know, time flies when you're having fun. I just think
sorry.
that this is a great concept, is worthy of further exploration. And you know, I think, Sarah, I just want to commend you for such a lovely design, because often a picture is worth 1,000 words. I mean, Steve could have talked about all of that, and I would have sat here and said, yeah, okay, and nodded my head in accord.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I think that in terms of, you know, you have displayed it in such a way that folks can wrap their minds around it. And I say, hey, and I suspect that we can even have the models where we can move things around and do all of those things, and in order to give people to build upon, because this provides a platform. This, as you said, Steve, this isn't the end all, this isn't the best thing. This provides a platform for discussion, and I would hope that our viewing audience would take that as the basis upon you're making this offering, and let's build upon it. I'm just excited as a Stoughtonite to be able to say we're going to do something. I firmly believe that we need to do more. I firmly believe we need a streetscape down 138 to make it more beautiful as we enter in terms of town. We certainly need to do more in Stoughton Center. We certainly need to attract the businesses. But as our time winds down,
Let me say one thing, Joe.
very quickly.
I want to thank the Master Plan Committee, the Stoughton Redevelopment, the CPC. There are so many groups working hard to try and make something happen. I just got to say thank you to all of those volunteers and town employees that are working hard.
And I want to thank all of the Master Plan Committee, but certainly I want to thank my guest today, the infamous Steve Kelley, and a friend I've just met today, Sarah Farragut. So thank you.
And thank you and happy birthday, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you for the birthday well wishes.